Hello there, and welcome to this explainer. If you're watching this right now, chances are that you or maybe someone you care about very deeply has been dealing with an incredibly frustrating, just stubborn problem. Today, we're going to completely unpack the mystery of persistent throat mucus. We're going to take our time and do this together, looking at the real science, and most importantly, finding actual practical answers that you can use. You're definitely going to want to stay with me until the very end of this because I promise you, the real causes behind this are almost never what people think they are. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, settle in, and let's get started.
Right off the bat, I want you to do something really simple for me. Just swallow once, right now. Really pay attention to it. Notice what you feel at the very back of your throat. Is there a thickness, maybe a sticky, heavy coating that just will not go away, no matter how many times you try to clear your throat? You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've probably been clearing your throat dozens of times a day. Maybe it's gotten to the point where you feel like you have to carry a bottle of water absolutely everywhere you go. Or maybe you've even started avoiding certain foods because you're worried they'll make it worse. I just want to validate right here, right now, that this creeping, annoying symptom is incredibly real. You're not making it up, and you are far from alone in dealing with it. So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll talk about the morning throat clearing. Second, why mucus changes with age. Third, the 5 hidden mucus triggers. Fourth, warning signs to watch for. And finally, your daily action plan.
Okay, let's dive into section 1, the morning throat clearing, more than just aging. For so many older adults, this particular problem is just constantly misunderstood. I hear it all the time. People go to the doctor, they complain about the constant throat clearing, and they're just handed a pack of throat lozenges or dismissed by folks who casually say, well, we're all just getting older. It's just a part of aging. But please, I really want you to remember this, that mucus is not random. It is absolutely not simply your age catching up with you. Your body doesn't do things randomly, and it certainly isn't trying to punish you for getting older. Every single persistent symptom, including that sticky throat, is your body's way of communicating something very specific. It's asking for help. Today, we're going to learn exactly how to listen to what it's saying. Moving on to section 2, why mucus changes with age, the biological shift. To really understand what goes wrong with our throat, we first have to understand what normally goes right. Believe it or not, your body produces mucus nonstop, all day, every day, and that is actually a good thing. It's a healthy, necessary, protective coating that catches things like dust and viruses before they can get into your lungs. But what happens to it over the years? Well, there's this incredible biological system in your body called mucociliary clearance. It sounds complicated, but think of it like this. Imagine your airways are lined with millions of tiny, microscopic hair-like structures. These are called cilia. Their entire job, 24/7, is to act like millions of tiny little brooms. They constantly beat back and forth, sweeping that mucus upward and outward, keeping it thin, keeping it moving, and ensuring it never just sits there and accumulates. It's a beautiful, self-cleaning system. Now, in a younger adult, let's say someone around age 40, this sweeping system is incredibly fast and highly efficient. Mucus is produced, it catches some dust, and it's swept clear almost instantly. You don't even notice it's happening. But, and this brilliantly illustrates the real issue, studies confirm that as we age, these tiny cilia, these little brooms, naturally start to slow down. They lose a bit of their energy. So the exact same amount of mucus that would have been effortlessly swept clear in seconds at age 40 can now pool and accumulate in the back of the throat for hours at age 65 or 70. This simple physiological slowdown means that any outside factor pushing your body to produce even a little bit of extra mucus is going to hit an older adult much, much harder, and the annoyance is going to last significantly longer. All right, section 3. Listen closely, because this is the core of our mystery. 5 hidden mucus triggers, the real culprits. Trigger number 1 is something called silent reflux. Now, unlike classic heartburn where you feel that awful burning in your chest after a big meal, this version often has absolutely zero chest burning. None. Here's what's happening. At the junction where your esophagus meets your stomach, there's a small muscular valve. Think of it like a rubber band. Over a lifetime of eating and digesting, like a rubber band stretched a few too many times, this valve can gradually lose its tightness as we age. When it doesn't snap completely shut, microscopic droplets of stomach acid slowly sneak upward while you are lying flat asleep. And here is the key. The moment even a trace of that harsh acid touches your delicate throat tissue, your body panics. It immediately starts producing thick, sticky mucus as a protective shield to defend that vulnerable tissue from the acid burn. Shockingly, up to 50% of people with this condition have absolutely no heartburn, just a rough voice, a morning cough, and that chronic urge to clear their throat. Let's look at trigger number 2, chronic post-nasal drip. Now, a recent 2024 study actually confirmed that the average age of patients presenting with this specific kind of chronic drip is exactly 55 years old. In a lot of older adults, chronic sinus inflammation is almost entirely invisible. You might have no facial pressure, no headaches, no obvious signs of a sinus infection, just mildly, quietly swollen sinuses that are silently draining slightly more mucus down the back of your throat all day long. And here's the trap a lot of us fall into. Many people mistake this mild dripping for seasonal allergies, so they go to the pharmacy and start taking over-the-counter antihistamines. But antihistamines just temporarily dry out the mucus. They do absolutely nothing to fix the underlying inflammation in the sinuses. So what you're left with is dried out, incredibly sticky, glue-like mucus sitting right on top of those slow-moving brooms in your throat, which feels infinitely worse than before. Trigger 3 is very often a massive surprise: ACE inhibitors. This is a very common class of blood pressure medications like lisinopril, for example. What happens is, these drugs inadvertently allow a substance called bradykinin to accumulate in your respiratory tract. And this buildup triggers persistent, nagging throat irritation in about 5 to 20% of the people who use them. I really want to stress this. It is a known, documented side effect. It is not an allergy. The truly tricky part about this, though, is the timeline. This bradykinin buildup can take months and months to fully develop. That makes it incredibly hard to connect the tiny little blood pressure pill you started taking back in January to the relentless throat clearing that suddenly began in June. Plus, adults over the age of 65 have 53% higher odds of experiencing this exact side effect. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is trigger number 4, hydration. I want you to think of fresh maple syrup right out of a brand new bottle. When you pour it, it's thin, it's fluid, it moves easily. Now think of a little puddle of that same maple syrup left sitting out open on the kitchen counter overnight. By morning, it becomes incredibly thick, tacky, and sticky. Your mucus behaves the exact same way when it lacks water. The big problem for older adults is that our body's natural thirst mechanism, that alarm bell that tells our brain we need water, becomes significantly blunted and much less reliable as we age. You can actually be mildly dehydrated enough to turn your protective mucus into thick, sticky overnight syrup without ever feeling the sensation of being thirsty. By the time you actually wait for thirst to remind you to get a glass of water, you are already operating far behind the curve. And finally, trigger number 5 is something called the gut-lung axis. This is a fascinating area of recent research. Your digestive tract and your respiratory system are deeply connected. They literally talk to each other. When the natural balance of good bacteria in your gut is disrupted, and this can happen due to everyday things like eating a diet low in fiber, taking repeated courses of antibiotics, consuming too much sugar, or even just carrying chronic stress, your gut actually sends inflammatory signals straight up to your airways. This crosstalk actively provokes your throat and your lungs into a state of defense, causing them to overproduce mucus. It's a daily reality for many, and it means your airways stay inflamed. When this is the root cause, no throat lozenge in the world is going to fix it because the problem isn't actually in your throat, it's down in your gut. Let's move on to section 4, warning signs to watch for, when to see a doctor.
Before we get into all the wonderful practical ways we can fix this day to day, I do need to pause and shift to a slightly more serious note. Most of the time, this persistent mucus is completely benign, just deeply annoying. However, I want you to please make an appointment with your doctor promptly if you ever notice any of these specific medical red flags. We're looking out for things like blood-tinged mucus, or if you have gradually worsening difficulty swallowing food or pills, if you've experienced unexplained weight loss without trying, if you feel any persistent lumps or swelling in your neck, or if you have significant deep changes to your voice that simply aren't resolving over time. If any of these appear, I strongly but warmly encourage you to bypass the self-management steps we're about to cover and just go see a healthcare professional immediately to get it safely checked out.
Okay, let's move to section 5 and see how this all builds into your daily action plan, steps for relief. This is the really empowering part. This is where we take all the biology we just learned and translate it into simple, practical, completely cost-free changes that you can literally start using tonight. Let's start with your new evening routine. Step 1. Stop eating 3 full hours before you lie down for bed. Remember that stretched rubber band valve in your stomach? Giving your stomach 3 empty hours lets gravity do its work, processing your food downward, drastically reducing the chance of silent reflux sneaking up while you sleep. Step 2. Elevate the head of your bed slightly with a firm wedge under the mattress. Not just extra pillows which bend your neck, but a real wedge. Just a few centimeters of incline uses gravity as a natural barrier to keep acid out of your throat. And step 3, drink a full glass of warm, not ice-cold, water right before sleep. This ensures your body has the baseline fluid it needs to keep mucus thin overnight. Now, let's talk about the morning routine. I know we all love our morning coffee or tea. But before you have it, I want you to drink 1 to 2 glasses of plain, warm water. Why warm? Because just like running warm water over a sticky plate in the sink, warm water gently and immediately loosens that overnight accumulation of thick mucus before it can ruin your morning. Next, try incorporating a daily saline nasal rinse. Clinical reviews consistently confirm that gentle nasal irrigation is a highly effective, super low-cost strategy. It physically washes away that silent inflammatory mucus up in your sinuses and clears the path so those tiny cilia brooms we talked about can actually do their job. Just remember to always use water that has been boiled and cooled down to a comfortable temperature, mixed with a pinch of plain salt. Now for the longer-term habits that will keep this problem away for good. First, if you happen to take a blood pressure medication, just write down a quick timeline of when your throat symptoms started. Take that to your doctor, ask if you're on an ACE inhibitor, and just politely ask if switching to an alternative class of drugs, like ARBs, might be a good option to try. Second, we want to gently support that gut-lung axis. You can do this by eating just one small daily serving of a fermented food, like plain yogurt or kefir. This slowly diversifies your gut microbiome and quiets down those inflammatory signals. Third, consistently sip fluids all day long to hit a target of about 30 milliliters per kilogram of body weight. Don't rely on your thirst to tell you when to drink. Just keep a glass nearby and sip consistently. Before we finish up, I want to quickly look at the actual biological effect of a few really popular internet home remedies. I'm sure you've seen these. First, honey. Honey is genuinely wonderful and soothing, but remember, it's just a temporary comfort. It coats the throat nicely, but it doesn't fix the root causes we've talked about today. Next is dairy. There's an old myth that dairy creates mucus. It doesn't actually create more mucus, but the specific proteins in milk and cheese can make existing mucus feel much thicker and tackier. So taking a short break from dairy might be worth trying if you're really suffering. And finally, apple cider vinegar. Please be careful here. If your throat mucus is being caused by silent reflux, swallowing a highly acidic shot of vinegar is literally adding more acid into an already burned, irritated system. It can aggressively worsen your exact problem, so please be cautious with internet fads. As we wrap up today, I really want to leave you with this profound thought. You are not just aging. You are dealing with specific, identifiable, addressable physiology. If a doctor, a friend, or even that little voice in your own head has ever made you feel like this constant, annoying throat clearing is just your burden to bear because of your age, I truly hope today has proven them completely wrong. You now have the knowledge to understand your body's signals. It's not a mystery anymore. You have the practical, biological steps to finally take back control of your throat comfort. I would absolutely love to hear from you down in the comments. Which of these 5 hidden causes? Was it the silent reflux, the sneaky post-nasal drip, the blood pressure medication side effect, the blunted thirst and dehydration, or that crazy gut-lung connection? Which one surprised you the most today? Think about your own medical mystery and see which puzzle piece fits. And please, if this explainer gave you some much-needed clarity or just made you feel a little less alone, share this empowering knowledge with a friend or a loved one who might be quietly dealing with the very same frustration. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn with me today. Stay hydrated, stay healthy, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.